The Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. It's my first review. I'll give a spoiler-free summary for those of you who haven't read it, and then begin a spoiler-heavy analysis. I'll give a warning beforehand. So I didn't buy this. I found this on the curb next to my apartment with some furniture left by a graduate student. So I didn't know what to expect, but usually when I find books like this, it's a good sign. Of the 14 plays I've read, this is my absolute favorite, at least on paper. I gave it a 5-star review on GoodReads recently, which means I strongly recommend it to all readers. It's a concise, gripping and thoughtful play, which makes it a perfect stage performance. A Doll's House is my favorite play because never before has a playwright convinced me that all the characters are at risk. There's continuous dramatic irony in this. We're always playing detective to work out who might die next, but it's not too intense for it to not be enjoyable. This mastery would be excellent itself, but Ibsen goes one step further to expound an important message, which resonates long after the play is finished, which is what made me move from 4 to 5 stars. The play really gets to the heart of things. It's very emotional, but it doesn't rely on stage lighting, positioning, or props, which many plays need to. There are no narrative tangents or cultural cliches which might make the play more inaccessible. It's widely readable for all. The play is really fervent, it knows what it's doing, and it makes the audience see that clearly. Okay, so go find it if you're interested. I'm going to begin a spoiler-heavy analysis now, so here's your spoiler warning. So what I find amazing about A Doll's House is how I think it's perfectly constructed around Nora's perception of a failing marriage. The themes in this play are not as universal as those in William Shakespeare's plays, as Western as those in Arthur Miller's plays, as existential and subversive as those in Samuel Beckett's plays, but they do get to a very relevant topic, which continues today over 100 years after its publication. That is the role of being an individual, but also being in a marital union. These are all my opinions, but I believe the play epitomizes the struggle that Virginia Woolf raises in A Room of One's Own much later, in that a married woman in these times, she could not have her own job, nor was she spared a room in the house to work, so she was unable to become a writer. The common link is that she feels like a slave trapped in her own house working for others, and this alienates her from her own family. It's amazing that a male writer in 1879, half a century before the beginning of the second wave of feminism, coinciding with the publication of The Second Sex, could empathize so strongly with the opinions and feelings of a woman and a man in a traditional marriage. I think the play is called A Doll's House because every room in the set can be defined by Nora's alienation from and subjugation by her own family. Outside, where her children play without her. Torvald's study, where he works away from her. The living room where she serves as an entertainer of Torvald's guests waiting to speak to him, and the bedroom where Torvald tells her her duties in the marriage. In short, the claustrophobic brutality of her marriage is communicated perfectly through the set design. The set is a dollhouse in that her role as a woman is defined in each room. There's also no time lost between the acts. This shows the timelessness of this arrangement. I find the fact that the children are never referred to by name or described in appearance really gives to their alienation from Nora, which makes her leave at the end of the play more believable. Speaking of which, this is my favorite play, but only on paper. Its theatrical adaptations are really hit or miss. In 1973, 2 film adaptations were released, and by comparing their endings, which you can find on YouTube, you can see exactly what I mean. Claire Bloom's performance of Nora is close to the text and is perfect. It's even more tragic than in the book. Whereas Jane Fonda's performance is completely apathetic and her dialogue's been abruptly cut so that she doesn't even seem to know what she's doing when she leaves the house. The problem with a flat performance of Nora is that it detracts from the general anxiety, which is the ambience of the entire play, in her not knowing whether she should leave. On YouTube, The Guardian published a short film which is meant to be a sequel to this, updated to modern times, but honestly, I didn't understand it, and I think they missed the point. The play has to be a tragedy, based on its ending. However, as a tragedy, the play is unique in that it doesn't follow Freytag's dramatic arc. The tension is continually rising and progressive, which I think is more realistic to the actual disputes of marriage. They gradually and progressively worsen from issues unresolved and break under pressure. This contrasts with how tension is normally dealt with in tragedies, where it rises and falls more to keep the audience entertained than to realistically portray a true experience. This is another reason why I love this play, because as a tragedy I think its structure is more realistic. The climax is right at the end and there's no positive scenario at the beginning of the play. This play is ultimately Nora's argument that her sacred duties extend to herself as an individual as well as a wife. This makes this play a still relevant feminist critique of social roles. By being so minimalistic in its style and plot, this play remains eternally relevant to expiring love. He does all this in a short, free-act play. This became a 5-star to me when Nora clearly expressed her feelings to show general societal problems with marriage. But what's amazing is when she says the most wonderful thing of all would have to happen to Torvald as she leaves. When reassessing the structure of the doll's house, it's hard to conceive of how anything could have happened other than what did. Everything in this play directly results from something else. There are no plot holes, there's no weakness. And so this makes us realize in retrospect that as an audience that the most wonderful thing of all could never have happened. It was a miracle, as Nora is saying. Ibsen is then in effect saying that some marriages structured in this way are inevitably destined to ruin. And it's just that. What makes this play fantastic is that it's believable. So that was a lot. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe.